The night my wife told me I had to earn access to the woman I'd already married was the night something in me went quiet. By the time I took my pillow to the leather couch in my office, the marriage was already dead. The paperwork just hadn't caught up. My name is Michael Reeves. I'm 38, and everything I own grew out of a single white pickup with a busted a C and a logo I painted myself in my parents' driveway. Reeves Logistics started with me hauling pallets at 3 in the morning for anyone who'd pay in cash. I loaded, I drove, I unloaded. I showered at truck stops and closed deals in greasy t-shirts, because I didn't have time to look like anything but what I was. A man trying not to drown. Every callus on my hands came from saying, yes, when other people said, that's not my job. Every scar is a mistake I couldn't afford to make twice. You stack enough of those together, years of saying yes, years of not quitting, and one day you look up and you've got a yard full of rigs, 3 terminals in different states, and 47 people whose rent depends on you not staying in bed when the alarm goes off. That's where I was the night this started. Coming off a 14-hour day, fresh from beating a bigger company to a contract that could cover payroll for a year. Emma came much later than the pickup. I met her at one of those charity galas downtown. I remember the ballroom lighting, but mostly I remember her. Dark hair, sharp eyes, a dress that probably cost more than my truck payment. She was in PR back then, working a table, talking about branding and messaging and reach. She sounded like the future I hadn't had time to think about. She told me she liked men who built things. I believed her. What I didn't understand was that she liked the story of a man who built things. The grind underneath it bored her. At first she was hustling too. Late nights, client pitches always on. I mistook that early version of her for her real character. Then my revenue climbed, and slowly hers didn't matter anymore. The PR job became too toxic. The commute was draining. She deserved a break. 1 month off turned into 6. 6 turned into, why should I kill myself for pennies when you're doing so well? Somewhere in there, my ambitious girlfriend turned into a full-time spender with a calendar full of lunches and spa days. I told myself she'd circle back. People get burnt out. They reset. I kept my head down and went harder at work, because that's what I know how to do. By the time that Friday night in the Woodlands rolled around, the house looked perfect on paper. For 1,000 square feet, manicured lawn, the kind of place realtors describe with words like executive and prestigious. I pulled into the driveway feeling like someone had wrung me out. My Bluetooth battery was dead from calls. My throat tasted like burned coffee. Inside, the lights were on, the TV was murmuring some reality show, and the entryway was a minefield of shopping bags. Designer logos, new shoes, tissue paper spilling out like confetti from a party I hadn't attended. Hey, I called. Smells like takeout. We already ate. Emma answered from the couch, eyes on her phone. Sushi. You said you'd be home by 7. It was the Henderson call, I said, dropping my keys in the bowl. They tried to rewrite the fuel surcharge clause last minute. I held the line. We got it. She didn't look up. Claire thinks we should do Cabo in March instead of April. Does that conflict with your whatever logistics thing? My whatever logistics thing is the reason Cabo is even on the table, I said, keeping my voice level. March is the peak season. I'll have to see what's going on with dispatch and... She finally glanced over, irritated, like I was a notification she couldn't swipe away. See, this is what I mean, she said. Normal couples plan trips. You treat everything like a freight schedule. Claire says Tom just books it and makes it work. Tom does residential mortgages, I said. If one of his files closes late, nobody's freezer full of vaccines sits on a tarmac for 12 hours. It's not the same game. She rolled her eyes and went back to her phone, thumb flicking fast. The food containers were still on the kitchen island. 2 wine glasses, only one with lipstick on the rim. I put the leftovers away, walked the bags out of my path so I wouldn't break my ankle on $3,000 of leather, and told myself what I'd been telling myself for years. This is just a phase. She's stressed. She'll come around. We watched TV in the same room like 2 people killing time in an airport lounge. She scrolled. I answered emails I shouldn't have been answering at 10 p.m. Eventually, She stood, stretched like a bored cat, and said, "I'm going up." I shut my laptop, let out a slow breath, and followed a few minutes later. Our bedroom looked like those magazine spreads she'd circled and left on the counter the year we built the house. Plush bed, soft lighting, expensive pillows no one was allowed to actually sleep on. I peeled off my shirt, dropped my jeans in the hamper, and slid under the comforter on my side. Habit and something deeper made me reach over. Not groping, not demanding. Just a hand on her hip, a simple contact that used to mean we're okay. She flinched like I jabbed her with a needle. "Don't," she snapped, pulling away so fast the mattress shifted. "Michael, seriously. I just did my skincare and I'm not in the mood." "I'm not asking for a performance," I said quietly. "Just my wife." She turned toward me then, eyes hard, mouth already forming the speech. I'd heard versions of it before, but never this polished. "That's exactly the problem," she said. "You think just because you come home tired and your fingernails are dirty, I'm supposed to be some consolation prize. I have self-respect, Michael." "Dirty fingernails," I repeated. "That's what we're going with now." "You know what I mean," she said. "You stomp around in your work boots like you're doing me a favor by paying bills. Newsflash, that doesn't buy you access. You don't just get to take from me whenever you feel like it. You want that? Earn it. Make me feel like a woman, not an employee." For a split second, the old version of me wanted to argue. To list the vacations, the cars, the dinners, the fact that we hadn't had a single conversation about anything but her wants in months. To tell her how many times I'd reached out and been ignored. Instead, something else happened. Everything just slowed down. Her words hung there. Dirty fingernails. Earn access. Self-respect. Like labels on shelves. In that quiet, I saw the whole marriage laid out. Me building, her consuming. Me apologizing, her grading my performance. Me treating vows like a job, her treating them like a subscription. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam a door. I just felt the switch flip from fight for this to no more. "Okay," I said. Just that. She blinked. "Okay, what?" "Okay," I repeated, and swung my legs off the bed. I grabbed my pillow. Not the decorative ones, those were sacred. The one I actually slept on. I walked to the doorway. "Where are you going?" she demanded. "I'm giving you what you just asked for," I said, turning back long enough to meet her eyes. "Space. No access. Nothing to earn. You can keep the bed." Her mouth opened, ready to launch into the next part, but I was already in the hallway. The house was quiet as I crossed to my office. That room smelled like leather and printer ink and long nights. The couch in there isn't one of those showroom pieces. It's the thing I bought used when I couldn't afford better, then never bothered to replace. I set the pillow down, lay back, and stared at the ceiling. There was no dramatic soundtrack, no shaking hands, just a very simple, very cold thought settling in like a new piece of furniture. This marriage is over. Maybe not on paper yet. Maybe not in her head. But in the only place that mattered, inside the man paying for it, something had closed. Tomorrow I'd still go to work. I'd still sign checks. She'd still post pictures. But the husband she thought she could keep testing had just clocked out. And this time, he wasn't coming back on shift. By sunrise, I wasn't a hurt husband anymore. I was a man with a logistics problem wearing a wedding ring. The first person I told the whole truth to wasn't a friend, a pastor, or my old man. It was a divorce lawyer in a glass tower downtown. Robert Callahan's office looked exactly like what I needed that morning. Dark wood, no clutter, a wall of quiet certificates. He shook my hand, sized me up like a foreman meeting a new subcontractor. "What can I do for you, Mr. Reeves?" "My wife just told me I have to earn access to the woman I already married," I said, sitting down. "So I'm here to make sure when this blows up, the business that paid for her lifestyle doesn't go with it." I laid it out clean. No dramatics, just facts. The charity gala, the early ambition, the slide into full-time consumer, the bedroom speech about dirty fingernails and self-respect. The spending, the contempt. He listened without interrupting, pen moving occasionally. "Texas is a community property state. he said when I finished. So unless you've got a prenup, we're talking about potentially slicing this thing in half. I do, I said. 5 years ago, she fought me hard. We didn't walk down the aisle until she signed. For the first time, he really smiled. Let me see it. I handed over the folder I'd dug out of the fireproof box in my office before dawn. He read fast, lips moving once or twice when he hit the language about separate property, business ownership, appreciation staying with the original owner. This, he said, tapping the last page, is going to save you millions. The knot in my chest didn't vanish, but it loosened, just enough for air. We went line by line. What was shielded, what wasn't, what I needed to stop doing today. By the time I walked out, my pain had turned into a checklist. I called my banker from the parking garage. This is Michael Reeves. I want $2 million moved from the joint investment accounts into accounts in my name only. Leave the household checking alone. Just trim it to a normal cushion. No arguments. Numbers moved. I followed it up by canceling the open-ended joint credit cards Emma treated like bottomless party favors, replacing them with a single, limited card tied to the house. I didn't rant. I didn't make speeches. I just built a wall, quiet, solid, and legal, between what I earned and what she felt entitled to burn. Back in the Woodlands, Emma still thought our only problem was that I was boring and worked too much. She had no idea I'd already started planning my exit. The morning after Callahan's office, I didn't feel like a husband. I felt like a project manager waiting for a bridge to fail on schedule. I left before sunrise. No note, no coffee, no kiss on the forehead. Just keys, wallet, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing my accounts were no longer wide open. Around 9, Emma called. Did you seriously just leave without saying anything? I put her on speaker and kept my eyes on the road. You said you wanted space. I'm giving it to you. That's not what I meant and you know it, she said. We didn't even talk about Cabo. We'll see if it fits the budget, I said, like I was talking about a new forklift. You have the card for groceries and the house. Use that. If you need something else, email me. Email you? She laughed. Sharp. What am I, your assistant now? No, I said. You're my wife. I'm treating you with the same clarity I treat my business. Silence. Then a scoff and a click. I went to work. Actually, it worked. No texting to check her mood. No racing home to make sure the house felt connected. I buried myself in freight schedules, driver issues, route planning. Felt clean. That Friday night, instead of dragging myself home to be graded on my performance as a husband, I drove to Brennan's and walked in alone. The hostess recognized me. Table for 2, Mr. Reeves? Just me tonight, I said. I ate a ribeye at the bar, drank a single whiskey, and let the noise of other people's lives wash over me. Couples on first dates, business dinners, anniversary toasts. I watched it all like I was on the other side of glass. Between bites, I sketched my next moves on a napkin. Copies of every bank statement. 5 years of credit card history. Receipts for handbags, spa visits, girls' trips. Schedule a meeting with the CPA. It wasn't grief anymore. It was an inventory. Saturday, I went to the office. Not to work, at least not in the usual sense. I fired up the printer and started pulling records. Joint visa, handbags, shoes, resort charges, a $4,800 wellness retreat. I barely remembered approving. Amex, restaurants, hotel upgrades, a $9,200 girls' trip line item that turned out to be Miami, bottle service, luxury suite, the works. By noon, the conference table was covered in paper. Rough math said close to $300,000 in 5 years burned on personal luxuries that had nothing to do with the house, the business, or our future. Just consumption. Just wanting more. I didn't get angry. I stapled, labeled, and stacked. That evening, I drove to Adam Wheeler's place. He and Luke Turner were already in the backyard, beers in hand, grill smoking, kids' toys scattered around. Real life, not staged for Instagram. Adam looked me over once and grunted. You look like hell. Long week, I said. Luke handed me a beer. Or a long marriage. We sat by his pool, the sky going from orange to purple. I told them about the bedroom speech, the lawyer, the accounts, the prenup. Adam didn't even pretend to be surprised. "She's been using you, man," he said. "I've kept my mouth shut because it's your life. But Claire's been in her ear for years. Every time you give an inch, they make it a mile." Luke nodded. "We've watched you jump through hoops for so long you don't even notice the fire anymore. You don't need to keep proving yourself to somebody who's already decided you're not enough." I took a long pull off the beer, letting their words land. This time I didn't defend her. I didn't explain the context. I just listened. "She told me I had to earn access to my own wife," I said finally. "So I'm done earning. I'm done chasing. I'll give her the distance she asked for. When the spending stops and the fantasy dries up, she'll try to reset the script." "And then?" Adam asked. I looked out at the dark water. "And then I serve her," I said. "Calm, clean, no yelling, just papers." Adam raised his bottle. "About time." We clinked glass in the fading light. Somewhere between that sound and the crickets starting up, I felt it settle. I wasn't waiting for my marriage to get better anymore. I was waiting for the right moment to end it on my terms. A week later, I took Emma to Blue Harbor. On paper, it was a standard business dinner. My partners, Tom and Linda Bradford, a bottle of wine or two, talk about the Henderson contract and expansion into Louisiana. In reality, it was the last performance of our marriage. Emma lived for these nights. She came down the stairs in a red designer dress I'd seen on a credit card statement a month earlier, heels that were more art than shoes, hair done like she was walking a red carpet. "How do I look?" she asked, already knowing the answer she wanted. "Expensive," I said. "Let's go. We're running a little behind." Blue Harbor was buzzing. Soft lighting, river view, the kind of place where deals get made because everyone feels important in that room. The hostess knew me by name. Tom and Linda were already seated, drinks in front of them. "Michael," Tom said, standing to shake my hand. "Emma, good to see you." She gave them the polished smile I'd watched 100 times. Air kisses, compliments on Linda's dress, quick joke about us, finally getting this one out of his office. For the first hour, everything was smooth. Appetizers, small talk, work. Tom lifted his glass toward me. "This guy is an animal," he said to Linda and Emma. "Nobody outworked Michael on this Henderson thing. They tried to squeeze us and he just wouldn't budge. We're lucky to have him as a partner." Linda nodded. "He's the reason we sleep at night." Should have been a good moment. The kind you let yourself enjoy for 5 seconds before the next fire starts. Instead, Emma laughed. Loud. Sharper than the room required. "Oh, please," she said, waving her glass. "You make it sound like he's some kind of superhero. Michael pushes paper and barks at people on the phone. When I met him, he was living in a sad little apartment eating ramen and wearing boots with holes in them." Tom's smile froze. Linda's eyes flicked to my face. Emma kept going. "I had to polish him up, you know? Teach him how to dress, how to talk to actual humans, not just truck drivers. Without me, he'd still be that guy with dirty fingernails and a truck that smells like diesel." The table went quiet. Conversations at nearby tables dipped, like the sound in the room had hit a pothole. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel hurt. I just felt something click into place, the same way a trailer locks onto a hitch. Secure. Final. I set my fork down, wiped my mouth slowly with the napkin, took a small sip of water. "Tom," I said quietly, "Linda, I'm sorry your evening took this turn. Dinner is on me. Please add anything you want and I'll take care of it." I signaled the server, handed him my card, and added a tip that would cover whatever awkwardness he'd just had to stand through. Emma blinked. "Michael, what are you doing?" I was joking. I stood, slid my chair in. "No," I said. "You were telling the truth. Yours, anyway." She frowned, confused and annoyed. "Sit down. You're making this weird." I looked at her, really looked. The dress, the jewelry, the practiced expression. The life I'd built wrapped around someone who clearly resented the man who built it. "You've made it very clear how you see me," I said, calm, steady. "A project. A before and after. Someone you upgraded. So I'm going to do you a favor. I pushed my chair in. I'm freeing you from my presence. You won't have to polish me anymore. Michael, she hissed, cheeks flushing. Stop being dramatic. Sit down. I turned to Tom and Linda. We'll talk next week about the Henderson rollout. Enjoy the rest of your night. Then I walked out. I heard her behind me. My name Sharp. Rising, then panicked. I didn't turn around. The valet brought my truck. I tipped him, got in, and drove. Not home. To Adams. He opened the door still in gym shorts, surprised. What's going on? I stepped inside, the smell of bourbon and grilled meat in the air, and said the only two words that mattered anymore. It's time. He poured a heavy drink, handed it to me without a word. The next morning, as the sun came up over Houston, I called Robert Callahan. File it, I said. I'm done. Once Robert filed the papers, everything got simple. I wasn't her husband trying to fix things anymore. I was a man executing a plan. First move, distance. I checked into a downtown hotel for a few nights. Neutral ground. Clean sheets, silent room. No perfume hanging in the air. No shopping bags in the hallway. Emma's text started the first night. Where are you? This is childish. We need to talk, Michael. I answered once. All communication goes through attorneys now. You'll hear from Robert's office. After that, silence from my side. While I watched SportsCenter on mute, Robert and his team went to work. Locks changed at the house. New codes for the alarm. Keyless entry disabled on her fob. He lined up a furnished apartment in her name. 2 months prepaid, utilities handled, move-in instructions in writing. Do it clean, I told him. No games. I don't want this coming back on me. It won't, he said. We're documenting everything. Monday was the day her world bumped into the new reality. I wasn't there, but between bank logs, timestamps, and later testimony, I know it almost beat for beat. Late in the morning, she went to the Galleria for retail therapy. She walked into one of those luxury boutiques she likes, picked a handbag that costs more than some guy's first cars, and handed over the joint credit card she'd been using like oxygen. Swipe. Pause. I'm sorry, ma'am. The sales associate, Jennifer Miller, said. It's been declined. Maybe try again. Emma laughed it off, made a comment about banks being stupid, handed it over again. Swipe. Declined. They tried another card tied to the same account. Same result. Jennifer, to her credit, stayed polite. Offered to call the bank with Emma right there at the counter. On speaker, the representative confirmed it. The account had been restructured. Authorized users updated. If she had questions, she should contact her husband. I picture her standing there in those heels, face burning, realizing the invisible safety net she'd always counted on wasn't there anymore. She left without the bag. Drove home. Tried her key. Nothing. In its place, taped neatly to the front door, was an envelope from Robert's office. Inside, notice of lock change, details on the apartment, a clear line stating that further contact should go through attorneys. That's when my phone really lit up. You changed the locks? Are you out of your mind? After everything I've done for you? Please call me. Please. We can fix this. I watched them come in from the hotel bed. Threats. Bargaining. Then the inevitable turned into tearful apologies and half-blame. I didn't answer a single one. Later, Robert called. She went to the bank, he said. Tried to access the investment accounts. They shut her down. She caused a scene. Let them document it, I said. They have. She's hired an attorney, Rebecca Stone. Aggressive. She's talking about contesting the prenup, accusing you of hiding assets, financial abuse, the whole list. I felt it then, not fear, not anger. Cold, steady satisfaction. Good, I said. Let her swing at it. For the first time since I met her, she's going to find out what it feels like when I stop funding the fantasy. Divorce isn't fire and explosions. It's paperwork and fluorescent lighting. The next few months were a grind. Emails from Robert, calls about discovery, calendar invites for depositions. My life shrank to 3 lanes: yard, office, lawyer. I thought it would tear me up. Instead, I got calmer. I wasn't trying to manage Emma's mood anymore. I wasn't checking my phone every hour to make sure she wasn't turning dinner into a test. I woke up, lifted, went to work, answered to freight and drivers and customers, the things that make sense to me. When the first deposition day came, I put on a dark suit that actually fit, same work boots. No show. Just me. Rebecca Stone was exactly what I expected. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, posture like a knife. Emma sat beside her, hair perfect, expression carefully wounded. We were in a conference room with a recorder on the table, a court reporter, coffee nobody drank. "State your name for the record," Rebecca said. "Michael Reeves." She started softly. Background, business, income. Then she went for what she wanted. "Mr. Reeves, would you describe your attitude toward money as controlling?" "I'd describe it as responsible," I said. "I sign checks that decide whether 47 families eat." She didn't like that answer, so she pivoted. "Is it true that you restricted my clients' access to marital funds?" "I protected business and separate property after she told me I had to earn access to my own wife," I said. "The joint checking for household expenses stayed open. I moved investments into my name that were already mine under the prenup. We've provided all the statements." Her eyebrows ticked up. "So you admit you took unilateral action to limit her financial freedom?" "I took legal action to protect my livelihood," I said. She still had a roof, a car, health insurance, and an apartment in her name paid for by me. I cut off handbags and bottle service, not food and shelter. Robert didn't need to object. My answers were clean. I just kept telling the truth in straight lines. They tried to paint me as a miser, a tyrant with a checkbook. Every time, the timeline saved me. The bedroom speech, the public humiliation at Blue Harbor, the cards, the locks, the paperwork. She wanted space. I gave her space with documentation. Then it was Margaret's turn. Margaret Collins has worked for me for 15 years. She's seen me broken, stressed, and exhausted. She's also the one who's seen every transfer, every bonus, every just do it approval I signed when Emma wanted something shiny. Emma's side clearly thought Margaret would be their star witness against me. Someone who would crack under pressure and spill some secret stash. "Ms. Collins," Rebecca said, "are you aware of any accounts Mr. Reeves keeps off the books?" "No," Margaret said. "Every account is on the ledger. I reconcile them monthly." "Has Mr. Reeves ever asked you to hide assets from his wife?" "No," she said. "He's asked me to find ways to pay her credit card bills without disrupting payroll." That one landed. Rebecca shifted. "Can you elaborate?" Margaret folded her hands, calm as a Sunday school teacher. "Over the past 5 years," she said, "Mrs. Reeves has called or emailed me directly asking for wires and card limit increases for handbags, spa packages, and resort trips. There was a $20,000 girls' trip to Miami last year. Bottle service, private cabanas, that sort of thing. Mr. Reeves approved it without argument, even when it meant he had to move money around to cover it." "Did you ever see him deny her requests?" Rebecca asked. "Yes," Margaret said. "Twice. Once when she wanted to trade in a perfectly good car after a year, and once when she asked for an advance on a hypothetical inheritance she thought he'd get from his parents. He said no to both and told her they weren't living on fantasies. I almost smiled at that. I'd forgotten to say it. Every answer Margaret gave was simple, factual, and cut straight through this picture of me as some financial jailer. She wasn't there to save me. She was there to tell the truth, and the truth made Emma look exactly like what she'd become. A woman addicted to spending other people's effort. Outside the building, in the real world, Claire Bennett was busy running her mouth. I heard about it from mutual acquaintances, from employees whose wives followed the right social media accounts. Michael's abusive. He starved her of money. He isolated her. She's a victim. Robert brought up the word defamation one afternoon. "We could go after Claire," he said. "Make an example. Shut her down." I thought about it. Thought about dragging yet another person into a fight I was already winning with math and signatures. "Nah," I said. "Let her talk. People were at that dinner. They've seen the statements. Lies like that collapse on their own. And slowly they did. Stories started to clash. People who'd heard Emma's version bumped into people who'd watched her torch me in public, who'd seen the bags, the trips, the way she talked about my money, like I was just the delivery system. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening to me. I started sleeping through the night. Number 3 a.m. wake-ups, heart racing, mind replaying arguments. No walking the house in the dark wondering what mood I'd be walking into tomorrow. Just 8 hours in a bed I'd paid for, in a silence I didn't have to earn. One evening, sitting in my truck outside the yard, I realized my brain felt uncluttered. For 5 years, I'd been allocating half my mental bandwidth to managing one person's emotions. With that gone, life got heavier in some ways, but simpler. I wasn't the bad guy in a story she wrote anymore. I was just the man who built the thing. And now I was making sure no one walked away with half of it just because they didn't like the sight of dirty fingernails. For months into the process, winter rain turned Houston into a swamp. We had a job in the Heights, a future boutique hotel stuck in the ugly stage. Rebar, mud, half-framed walls. My boots were caked. Jeans streaked brown halfway up my shins. Felt good. Honest. I was walking the site with Pete Gallagher, the GC, going over a delivery schedule, when he glanced toward the chain-link gate and swore under his breath. Mike, he said. Are you expecting company? I followed his eyes. Emma. Designer coat. Wrong shoes sinking into mud. Mascara smudged just enough to look accidental. Like she'd dressed for court and wandered onto a construction site by mistake. Pete leaned in. You want me to call security? Give it a minute, I said. Let's see what script she's running today. She picked her way across the site like a lost actress on the wrong set, calling my name. Michael, we need to talk. I met her halfway, stopping with a stack of pallets between us. Close enough to hear every word. Far enough that she couldn't close the distance without climbing. You can't be here, I said. This is an active site. She ignored that. You won't take my calls. You won't answer my messages. I had to see you. No, I said. You wanted an audience. Her face crumpled, then smoothed into the version of sadness she thought worked on me. I was listening to the wrong people, she said. Claire. She twisted everything. I was stressed and I said awful things. I know I hurt you, but I love you, Michael. I always have. We can fix this. There was a time those words would have hit me like a shot of adrenaline. Now they just sounded like lines in a play I'd seen too many times. You remember our bedroom, I said. The night you told me my fingernails were dirty and you had to earn access? When you said paying bills didn't buy me anything as a husband. She flinched. I was angry. It was the heat of the moment. No, I said. That was you without a filter. That was who you really are. I didn't raise my voice. I just kept going. You remember Blue Harbor? My partners at the table while you told them I was nothing until you polished me up? The cards? The bags? The 300 grand you lit on fire while calling me boring? Tears started big and shiny. I didn't mean. You meant all of it, I said. You just didn't mean for there to be consequences. For a second, the act slipped and I saw the anger under it. So that's it, she snapped. You're just going to throw away our marriage? After everything I invested in you. You invested in a lifestyle, I said. I invested in us. There's a difference. She tried one last pivot. We can start over. I'll go to therapy. I'll get a job. No, I said. You don't get to rewrite history just because the money faucet turned off. I lived in the reality you created for 5 years. Now you get to live in it. I turned to Pete, who'd been hovering a respectful distance away. Get security, I said quietly. Escort her off the site. Make sure she doesn't get hurt out here. Emma's voice rose behind me, calling my name, throwing out apologies, accusations, bargains, all in one messy stream. I kept walking, boots sucking in the mud, the sound of saws and hammers swallowing her words. By the time I reached the trailer and closed the door, it hit me. Not anger, not victory, nothing. That was the day the emotional account finally hit zero. The final hearing day didn't look like a climax. It looked like a tired courthouse with scuffed floors and fluorescent lights that made everybody the same shade of pale. I sat at the table beside Robert in a dark suit and work boots, hands folded, documents neatly stacked. Across from us, Emma in a soft, neutral dress like she was auditioning for Devoted Homemaker, and Rebecca Stone, sharp as ever. The judge came in, we stood, we sat. No music, no drama. Just a calendar number and a case file. Rebecca went first. Your Honor, this prenuptial agreement is invalid. My client signed under emotional duress, without proper counsel, and the terms are fundamentally unfair given Mr. Reeves's current wealth. She said the words like she'd practiced them in the mirror. Duress, unfair, victim. Robert didn't flinch. When it was his turn, he slid a binder forward. Your Honor, if I may direct the court to Exhibit A. Emails. Weeks' worth of them. Emma went back and forth with her own attorney 5 years ago. Questions, red lines, suggested edits to the prenup language. Her lawyer recommended changes. Me agreeing to most of them. This thread shows Mrs. Reeves had independent counsel, Robert said. She requested modifications, several of which were incorporated. The agreement was finalized weeks before the wedding, not sprung on her the night before. The judge flipped pages, eyes moving, pen tapping once. Rebecca tried again. Regardless of timing, the terms left my client with nothing meaningful after sacrificing her career to focus on marriage and home. Robert opened another tab. Exhibit B, 5 years of financial records. All income from Mr. Reeves. All household expenses paid by him. Additionally, discretionary spending by Mrs. Reeves totaling approximately $300,000 on handbags, luxury goods, spa services, and trips, not including housing, vehicles, or healthcare. He didn't put any heat on it, just numbers. When the judge saw the Miami trip line item, his eyebrows went up. Mrs. Reeves, he said, looking over his glasses, did you have employment during this 5-year period? She shifted. I chose to focus on the home, Your Honor. Emotional labor, social hosting, supporting his career. Did you perform the majority of household tasks? He asked. Cleaning, cooking, childcare? We have a housekeeper, she said. And I ate out a lot, but I managed things. The social calendar, charity events, his presentation. Her voice got smaller as she went. The room felt even brighter. The judge closed the file. Here's what I see, he said. A valid prenuptial agreement negotiated with counsel, executed well before the marriage. A husband who built and maintained a business. A wife whose lifestyle was fully funded by that business and who did not contribute financially during the marriage. This court finds no legal basis to invalidate the agreement. He read the rest like a grocery list. I keep the house. I keep Reeves Logistics. I keep the retirement accounts and investments defined as separate property. She gets the lump sum we agreed to in the original prenup and 30 days to vacate the property. The gavel didn't slam. It just dropped once, soft like setting something down. Outside, March air cut through the leftover courtroom smell. Robert stood beside me on the courthouse steps. Congratulations, he said. You did better than most. I looked out at the city. Same traffic. Same sky. Different weight on my shoulders. How do you feel? He asked. I thought about it. About the 5 years, the fights, the nights on the office couch, the mud on that job site. Lighter, I said. Not happy. Not sad. Just done. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like finally setting down a load I never should have been carrying alone. 3 months after the judge said his piece, I bought a cabin that smelled like old wood, dust, and possibility. It wasn't big. 1 story, wide porch, tin roof that sang when it rained. A few acres of trees and marsh on Lake Pontchartrain. Just outside a small town where nobody cared what I did for a living as long as I didn't block the boat ramp. The 4,000-square-foot house in the woodlands had been perfect on paper. This place was imperfect in all the right ways. Crooked steps, stubborn door, coffee maker that wheezed like a sick dog but still produced something hot enough to drink on the dock at sunrise. I kept my life split. Weeks in Houston running Reeves Logistics, weekends here. Routine came easy. In the mornings, I took coffee down to the rickety dock and watched the mist burn off the water. In the afternoons, I sanded old boards, fixed what needed fixing, learned the sounds of this place the way I'd learned the sounds of my yard. Whined through the reeds, motor rumble of a single outboard cutting across the lake. Sometimes Adam and Luke drove in for a weekend. We fished, grilled whatever we didn't screw up, sat on the porch with beers and let the conversation go wherever it wanted. "You gonna start dating again?" Luke asked one night, staring out into the dark. "Eventually," I said. "Right now I'm working on remembering how to be by myself without feeling like something's missing." Adam nodded. "Nothing wrong with quiet. Most guys never get it back once they lose it." Word about Emma filtered in sideways. Mutual friends. Employees' wives. Houston's a big city, but the circles we ran in were small. She was in a modest apartment on the wrong side of town for her tastes. No housekeeper. No spa membership. Claire Bennett disappeared the moment the money did. Unfollowed her on everything. Stopped answering her calls. The curated Instagram grid of luxury trips, handbags, and wine bars turned into recycled quotes about healing, self-love, and letting go of toxic people. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel sorry for her either. It was just weather, something happening somewhere else. One morning, the lake was glass. The sun comes up slowly, turning the water into a sheet of hammered copper. I stood on the dock with my mug, breathing in that mix of damp wood and coffee, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a second, I almost ignored it. Then I thumbed it open. "Hey, it's Emma." No greeting, no preamble. "I heard you bought a place in Louisiana. I hope you're happy there. I've been thinking a lot about everything. I'm sorry for what I did, for what I said. I wish I could take it all back. I know I don't deserve a reply, but I wanted you to know. I read it once. No flood of old feelings. No rage. No satisfaction. Just words from someone I used to know, finally realizing the bill came due. There was a time I would have written back a whole essay, telling her how much she'd hurt me, listing all the ways I'd tried, offering one more chance. There was a time I thought closure came from a conversation. I knew better now. Closure is a decision you make alone. I looked at the screen for maybe 5 seconds more. Then I hit delete. No reply. No last word. Just gone. Behind me, the cabin creaked as it warmed up in the early light. Out on the water, a small boat's engine turned over and settled into a low hum. I took a long sip of coffee and let the quiet fill back in where her voice used to live. Love without respect is just needed. Need will eat through any man who lets it, until he's nothing but bones holding up somebody else's fantasy. I'd spent 5 years paying for another person's emptiness, mistaking it for a partnership. Not anymore. The sun cleared the treeline. The lake flared bright. I stood there, boots on old wood, and felt something simple and solid. I'm done paying. And for the first time in a long time, the life waiting in front of me felt like it actually belonged to the man who built it.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.